Hey Stella, with Mihaela. I'm actually shaking right now as I'm doing this. First of all, I want to say that I have asked for permission, having been privileged to work with amazing artists from Egypt and Kuwait. And due to those experiences, my understanding of their culture, my understanding of their religion became more detailed, more specific. Having been invited to participate to 2 different festivals some years ago before the pandemic, my preconceived idea of who those people and what those countries were, I found out was 100% wrong. Even in this moment, making the decision that I was going to use these beautiful gifts that were given to me by those amazing human beings, artists, made me tremble as I was putting it on. I have asked permission from one of my, I like to call him partner in art, who happened to be my translator to the workshop in Egypt and was so on point, being able to translate this work of the actors that we talk about on Hey Stella podcast, that after I would say something to the artist in the workshop, the ones that would understand English, they would laugh. And the other half who would not understand English very well would wait for his translation, would translate, and then they would laugh. So I was so sure that he was able to understand the specific detail work and the humor that I was able to bring to it. Thank God. This is harder than I thought. I have to be honest. I'm talking as a robot because I'm trying to maintain my cool about it, and I'm trying not to cry because I have so much emotion inside of me. It's almost like I feel that how dare do I take on a role or try to put myself in the situation of people who are so extraordinary and their culture is so rich that I cannot even begin to say that I can immerse myself into it. But what I can say and what it's okay for me to say and to do as an actor, as an acting coach, is to have the willingness to be without judgment and to put myself or actors out there, to put yourselves in the shoes of other people who might at first look or speak differently than you do. Having had the privilege to go and be met with grace from all of them with open arms, wanting to share their stories, their specific stories, that by the end, you understand 100% that they are so much more similar to ours, to the others, than we have the understanding to begin with. The reason why I'm taking a risk, acting, method acting, is what that requires for us to do. Method acting and the tools and the training of the actors in the techniques that method acting provides is requiring for the actors and for the storytellers to not only tell the stories, they are called storytellers, but they are being required to live the stories of the characters they are portraying. Live them. Put yourself in the shoes of those people because they are people. Take on what scares you. Have the courage to put on, beginning from the outside in, beginning from the inside out. For me, because this is only an introduction, I'm only introducing myself to try to have 1% of understanding of what it must feel like for women to cover their faces. I'm not even going any deeper than that, because if I were to say that I am a method actress, and because I put on this beautiful hijab, I hope I'm saying it correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. To say that I'm immersing myself in the role, I would definitely make a statement that I understand a culture that goes back thousands and thousands of years. And I don't have the right to do that because I haven't earned saying and achieving that. But the willingness to try in acting and the willingness to stay open to the trying and continue to try and continue to train and continue to want to discover, being free of any kind of preconceived understanding or idea, is what the techniques of method are. So that's what the difference is between just good actors and great actors. When I came back from Egypt, having had this opportunity again and having had the grace to be received by the most amazing human being that I met, Dr. Gamal Yakout, and my partner in art, Loay Tarek. Having come back after that experience before the pandemic, I was due to work in session at the Actors Studio, and I was so filled with joy, and I was so filled with curiosity after coming back, having had the most extraordinary experience with those actors and artists and people of Egypt, in Alexandria to be more specific, that I decided that since I was gifted this beautiful experience, that I would give myself the opportunity to put on this beautiful present, wake up in the morning, put it on at my house in New York City, cover the way that I am covered right now, and bring it to the stage of the Actors Studio without telling the moderator of the Actors Studio and the people there what I was going to do exactly. And my decision was to give myself artistic permission, artistic license, to imagine that since I am an Orthodox, our religion is Orthodox. My father is a priest, as a lot of you know. I was raised Orthodox, surrounded by church, in the community. I wanted to know what it would feel like in practice, not just understand in my mind on a superficial level, but I wanted to experience it in practice. I wanted to experience it the best that I could with as little as I was able to gather from Egypt and Kuwait, and turn a monologue of Maria Magdalena, of Mary Magdalene, from The Last Temptation of Christ of Kazantzakis, reimagine her. So this is how the experience went. I got up, I put this on, as you see me right now. My eyes were visible. I left the apartment on Roosevelt Island where I live, having had to take the subway, the metro, to get to Manhattan where the Actors Studio is. I have to tell you, I got outside on the street, and as I was walking for a few minutes, the distance from my apartment to the subway, people on the street were giving me different looks than the usual. They were looking, some of them were looking completely directly. Others were pretending not to look, as if to say, no, this is something that's not unusual for them. But then you could see them look from the corner of their eyes. By the time that I got to the subway and I got into the metro, I sat down, and some of the people and some of the looks that were coming directed at me in this new role that I was trying to put myself in, so I could understand just a little bit more from practice and not just theoretically. I started to be a little bit afraid because of some of the looks. And that was heartbreaking. I started to be scared. I didn't see that coming, but I started to be scared for myself. And all these new different looks in the people's eyes I had not experienced dressed in my usual way that I dress. I had to be heightened in my senses all of a sudden. I had to be ready. If I need to protect myself, I need to be ready. Some of the people were also positive. Some of the people were giving me smiles, almost wanting to redeem the ones who were not giving me the same smiles. Doing it to say we're not all bad, we're not all judgmental. To be honest, do I think they were looking at me awkwardly because they could tell that I'm actually an actress going to the actor studio, assuming, trying to get into just the beginning of understanding what it would be like if I were to be covering myself in my everyday life? I don't know that. I cannot answer that, but I don't think they would have known. So I get to the stage of the actor studio. I was the first one to go in session. I went backstage, kind of hidden. I arrived there before the other people came in. So nobody really saw me before the session began. And I was already center stage. And I heard the door opening from the theater. People were coming in. And usually, you know how you hear people, audiences coming in, and you hear the shush, the fush, they're still talking to each other. By the time they get to the seats, there's still like some sort of a noise. And I had already planned that I was going to be on stage when they were coming up. As they were entering, all of a sudden I could just hear the shift. You know, the one shift that is so subtle, but it's when you're watching something and you're engaged, but then something happens and then the attention and the engagement of the audience just goes up. There's this silence that's like a different silence than the one that's in the first taking in the actor on stage or the stage in a theater. And I could just feel that shift. It wasn't that I just understood that their way of speaking became all of a sudden whisper, and the whisper then went to quiet. The whole energy in the actor studio completely changed. I was shaking as I was standing there. I was standing there and I felt so tensed up, completely much more than I had anticipated, because I didn't expect for them to have that shift in the way that they perceived me. So they knew that I was going to be the one working that day because we have to announce it before. So my name was already written down as they walk into the hallway into the first room of the theater before they go up to the stage. So they knew that I was working, but they saw me like this with the whole black hijab covering completely my entire body, but my hands were visible and my eyes. I was shaking. I started to make sounds and let out sounds to release some of the tension that I was feeling. So I started going with the exercise, which is good for everybody. It's not just for actors. Going back to why this acting and its tools, if only known by the public, the general public, they would be so thrilled to understand how useful they are to everyday life when you use them, because they make you deal with tension in your body. You release the tension by allowing this very staccato sound to come out by using your diaphragm. So it's ha, 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 ha. At the same time, you can also focus on where exactly are you holding the tension in your body. For me, right now, it is in my feet, which are under the table. So what I'm doing, I'm tensing my feet, my toes right now. I'm breathing in through my nose. And then when I release the tension from my feet, I release it through the sound ah. That is a melody-like sound. It's not the staccato like the one before. I feel like the light just changed. This is so Unbelievable. Do you feel like the light just changed in the room? Or maybe it's because the sun from outside just came up. Wow, that was relevant. That was really beautiful. I can see my eyes so much more clear. And as I'm looking right now, I've never paid attention to my eyes the same way that I am now. I'm just noticing my eyes for the first time. I feel like there's a different way in the shape of it that I've never really seen. I know I'm giving out so much. I'm giving out so much to so many. And sometimes I feel like this is such sacred work and I should keep it to myself. But then I feel like that would be selfish to keep it to myself. So in sharing my experiences, I only hope that anybody out there can be a little bit more curious about wanting to get to know other people who at first seem different than themselves. If that's all that I can kind of share with you, and for you to want to just give it an experience and give it a try, to leave aside judgment and just stay open and get to know people. That's why this acting is so important. It's not just for entertainment purposes. It's for teaching us to be better with one another. It's for making us understand how to grow personally, knowing how to be able to deal with our own body and our own tension in the mind and be able to release it. As I say all the time, emotional, educational, physical training that actors must go on doing their entire lives to better understand who they are personally, so then they can merge the imagined self and create these characters that are three-dimensional flesh and body characters. That's what great acting does. And that's what great acting requires. Getting back to the session, after releasing the tension from my body through the sounds that I had just mentioned, there's two versions, as I told you before, and that goes on for a few minutes, as much as you can try to get rid of the tension, because you will never be able to get rid of the tension completely, but at least you're aware of it. Awareness is another thing that you learn from acting. So you can release yourself of the tension enough to be able to stay open and allow expression, emotion, sentiments to come out of an open instrument, which is the self, you, yourself, the actor, the art in you. The art can only happen if you allow that instrument, which is you, to be open to everything. As soon as I finished that, I went into the monologue. There was a monologue that I was preparing before, and that was what I was going to go to when I felt that I was going to be ready to go to it. As soon as I started to go into the monologue, I felt like it wasn't coming out truthfully. It just felt like it was pretend, bad acting. And I kept on going with it. And the more I went with it, I was trying to show the audience, which is not something that you want to do. I was trying to show the audience that I'm a good actress. So instead of allowing myself to take the more time that I needed, because I wasn't ready to say the first line, I went ahead to say the first line because I felt, here I am, they're already looking at me thinking that I am completely, I don't know, crazy to be doing something like this. So I felt like I was keeping them and I was boring them. And that, again, is the worst thing that you can care about, because if you go and you say the lines out of boredom, it means that you're the actor on the stage wanting to please the audience. And then the art in you becomes you in the art. And you should never become more important than the art in yourself. Going back to Stanislavski again, I'm paraphrasing, quoting him over and over again. Not having given myself the permission to actually take more time as I needed and going into the first line and then the second, the truth did not happen because I was not allowing myself to experience the moment in the truth of, I need more time before I go to the monologue. Then that made me really upset with myself. Another wrong thing came into my mind and into my body. Tension happened again. I kept going with the lines. I kept being frustrated instead of just stopping. Just stop and bore the audience. one of the most difficult things to do is to bore the audience, because that makes you feel like you're not worthy of their time. So you want to prove the love that you always needed from someone in your childhood, not because they weren't loving to you, but because they did not know the right way to show you that they loved you. It could be the love from a parent. It could be a love that you needed from a grandparent, a friend. And all of those thoughts that come into your head will make you want to finish what you're doing on stage, to get off as immediately as you can so you don't waste people's time. And we are taught at the Actor Studio, and method teaches us, take your time. Do nothing until you feel that something is actually happening. Focus on one thing to work on. If I would have focused on the fact that here I am, I'm doing the lines because I'm trying to please these people, what do I need to do right now? I need to give my senses something that they can work with, so my brain becomes occupied with a sensory commitment, concentration, than allowing just my mind to be going and taking over my whole being. The voice that we have that tells us all the things that are negative about ourselves. So I could have stopped and I could have said, let me just see who my audience is today. Let me just focus on that. Stop talking. It's okay that you haven't finished the monologue. This is an exploration. This is much more important for what you're trying to do. You giving yourself the permission, and you asking for the permission to even give yourself the first chance to try to understand another culture is already enough. So you already are a brave human being. Take that rather than allow the voice with the negative input to come at me. Take that and then concentrate on who is your audience. For instance, right now, I don't have a present audience because I'm in front of a camera, right? I could imagine right now, I'm imagining that I'm standing on the stage of the Actor Studio, and I can only imagine what they must see when they're looking at me, because they've never seen me like this. They've seen me as my usual self in my ordinary everyday clothes. So let me break the fourth wall, which means that I am making contact with the audience, but not just making contact with an audience, which is in a general way. I'm just looking at everybody and I'm seeing nobody. Breaking the fourth wall and making contact with the audience is that you actually pay specific attention to a couple of people that you choose to connect, to make eye contact with. So who's in the first row? In the first row right now, I see the moderator. He's kind of uninterested. What I'm getting is he looks a little bit uninterested, but maybe that's just my perception. No, there's a smile. He has a smile that's coming back at me, and that makes me feel a little bit more reassured that what I'm doing is not completely wrong and I'm not boring them. And then there's somebody else right there. I see somebody else right there. Oh, I know that person. He's a good friend. I go back with him for so many years, and I've worked on this stage with him. He has his hand like this. He's kind of frowning, and his eyebrows are questioning. What is she doing? How does that make me feel? Well, it's okay, because I'm still courageous enough. Even if I fail and I'm doing this the wrong way, I will still get something out of it than if I never given myself the opportunity and the permission to go and try in practice on my feet. And that's what's so important. The trying on your feet, even if you fail, will inform you rather than not trying and not know. And just as I was giving myself that task to look and to make more eye contact with different people, I hear a voice from the first person that I made eye contact with, the moderator, who said, Mihaela, it's okay. It's okay. Just relax. So he being a member of the actor studio, and he's also one of the artistic directors, he felt that everything that I had described to you was happening to me. And he knew, as we know, because we have done this work at the actor studio for so many years, it goes back 75 years since it was founded. They're going to be celebrating 75 years this coming year. So we all understand the work. We understand the need in order to give them that permission that at some point we cannot give ourselves. So he said, it's okay, just relax. It's okay, Miha, just relax. So he said to me, I understood, you're enough. You don't have to try so hard. Stop trying so hard. You are beautiful. You are worthy. You are good enough. We see you. You don't have to prove yourself to us. And as soon as he said that, I completely fell to my knees. And as I fell to my knees, I could just feel every muscle in my body, every tension in my mind just completely dissolve. Because what had happened when I fell to my knees, my father, who's a priest, and his image became so real in front of me. And he was looking at me, doubting, not understanding, because he wasn't there from the beginning. So he felt I was betraying him. He saw me as his daughter, not as an actress. Who's experiencing another religion. And that was the surprise. I didn't know how important my need was to please my dad. I knew that all of us as people want to please our parents, want to please our loved ones in our lives. But I didn't know how important that desire was to please him. And that gain for me that day was huge. Having come to that point, I decided that I was going to stop. The way the session works is when you finish, the audience members, who are all members of the actor studio or finalists, they get to give you feedback to the work. I think even Jeremy was there, so he remembers some of the things, because when you're in it, you tend to forget some of the things that people say afterwards because you're still in it so much. But you have to stop and you have to know the line between this is done with the session and now I gotta be the observer, because I need to take everything that's being given to me, which is going to help with the next step that I have to do towards being able to portray this character with respect, with dignity, with integrity that he deserves, that she deserves. I think it was a mutual feeling that they all had. They feel ashamed looking at you, began to judge you because of the way that you were dressed. Feel ashamed. They were all ashamed of their feelings towards this person that happened to be covered. They were afraid and they felt really sorry about it. So when I told them afterwards that I have experienced, while being in Egypt and in Kuwait, these women to be so strong, they were blown away. It was very provoking, and the conversation was very alive. So whenever you do something, the success of it doesn't mean that that's going to be the it that is going to provoke the conversation. Many times, and many more times, I think the trying, the willingness to actually put yourself in a situation that is difficult to put yourself in, giving it your all, the all that you can in the moment, with the help of the acting coach, with the help, in my case, of the moderator, to fail in a way, because I never got to do the monologue exactly the way that I wanted to. Nobody said, oh, bravo, you did the monologue exquisitely. But it wasn't about that. It was about the fact that I did try something that even now, having this on, my mind goes to, I don't know if I'm going to show it to people because they're one going to think that I've gone completely crazy. Second, my parents, I don't know what they're going to see. They probably don't even understand that this is like part of an acting work that I'm doing, or they are, but at the same time, they're going to see me like this. They've never seen me like this. Community, everybody's going to see me and they're going to be like, oh my God, is Miha gone crazy? I have not. I just want to make sure that I tell everybody that I'm not. I am sitting here due to the enormous generosity from all the artists that I met in Egypt, all the artists that I met in Kuwait, and Dr. Gamal Yakout, who made those two possible for me to be invited and to have experienced something that will change me and has changed me forever. Sitting here again, I am looking at the way that for the first time I put makeup in a long time on my eyes. I usually am really bad with makeup. I've had some comments from friends of mine who have seen the other episodes of Hey Stella podcast, and they say, you know, Miha, you got to put makeup on. You got to make yourself look beautiful. And I am going to. I'm going to try to do more of that because that's necessary. It's necessary to look good. People want to see the best version of yourself. But right now, I felt that I owe this character to actually give it a try and put makeup on, because when I had witnessed in those two beautiful countries, the women, their makeup on their eyes and their beauty was beyond what I had seen before. They were gorgeous. They were beautiful. They were so beautiful. Their makeup was perfect. Their eyebrows were so gorgeous. Their eyelashes, they were just pure beauty in a way of lightness. There was a light that was coming out of their eyes. So when I was trying to get ready for this, I looked at myself and I said, I have to give myself just the try to not let them down, to at least try. This is nothing in the way of how they know how to do makeup and how they take care of themselves, which says so much about who they are and about how they feel about themselves, that they want to present their best side because they know they're beautiful. They know they're beautiful. They know their strength. They don't have to show it. They know it inside, the strength that we feel as people, the worthiness. That's not something on the surface. Even if you show only this part of your body, your eyes, which are the window into the human soul, that's more than plenty. There could be much more light that comes out of this part than somebody who doesn't cover and somebody who's dressed or not dressed at all. And I had one person also said to me, I have seen you work on the stage of the actor studio. I've seen you naked. I've seen you without clothes on. I've seen you do all types of different experiments, but we have never seen you as naked, seeing only your eyes. We've never seen you this much, Miha. And I was just so thankful, and I am so grateful that I am able to be part of this profession that goes beyond just entertaining, as if you were this person. This is not something that's giving me 100% understanding of the beautiful culture of the Egyptian people and the people from Kuwait. I'm not even saying that. To also understand that as my role of an acting coach, I have to also put myself in the situations of the actors all the time, so I don't forget that the putting it in practice, the work in practice, will provide with so much more awareness and enlightenment and understanding that we are so much more similar than we are different. So all these crazy borders, all these crazy different religions, and the fact that they don't all come together and we are separated by them is just not making any sense. At the bottom of it all, we are humans. We are humans. We are humans. One of the artists from Egypt, he's so cute. He says, he sent me a message the other day, and he says, if anyone wants to be depressed, then take workshop with Mihaela. She is great. making you depressed. So I'm thinking right now, what came into my mind right now was like, oh my God, he's going to see this and he's going to see that I'm crying. But I'm not crying of depression. I just want to make sure I'm not crying of depression. I am crying because I am so joyful to have the privilege to know the people that I have gotten to know in my life. And I am so thankful. Thank you so much.